There is a specific kind of silence that falls over a person when they open a property listing at midnight and gradually realize, like a tide receding from a shore, it no longer wants that the numbers do not add up. Not in the way of a miscalculation, not in the form of a rounding error, but in the manner of a system that was never designed for them in the first place. Sold as a straight-faced American dream dressed up in laminate countertops and a freshly mown lawn. That is really the story of that silence, and of an emperor who heard it 2 centuries before you, and with characteristic Napoleonic efficiency, decided to make someone else pay for it. Somewhere in the machinery of modern life, a very serious deal was made. No one ever signed it, no one voted on it. It was simply understood. The way you know one side has gone terribly wrong when the landlord stopped making eye contact. The deal was this: shelter. The most basic of human necessities, the thing that separates civilization from a very long camping trip, would become a financial instrument, a speculative asset, a wealth-building tool for those who already possess wealth, and an aspirational mirage for everyone else. And we all sort of complied over our morning coffee and acted like it was fine. In America, the median household income is about $83,000 a year. It sounds reasonable. It looks like the kind of ideal number that should buy you a house with a functional kitchen and a yard that doesn't actively humiliate you. And yet, the average home price has climbed to about $415,000, exactly 5 times the annual income. 5. The previous generation bought homes for 3 times their annual salary and considered it a stretch. What is being asked of you is not stretch. It is a publicly performed full-body contortion with a mortgage broker applauding from the sideline. But let's stop pretending this is normal progress. This was a collective fever dream we agreed to ignore over morning coffee, nodding along as an entire asset class floated quietly out of reach for the majority of working people. And somehow the response was to make loan terms a bit more creative rather than asking why the house cost so much in the first place. This is where Napoleon enters the room, and yes, it is relevant, and yes, it is about to make perfect sense. When Napoleon seized power in France in 1799, he inherited a country that was, financially speaking, the economic equivalent of a house where every pipe had burst simultaneously.
Hey guys, if you're enjoying the video, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss.
With an enthusiasm usually reserved for people who have never heard the word hyperinflation. By 1795, over 45 billion livres had been printed, confidence evaporated, savings dissolved. The currency became useful primarily as wallpaper, which was at least a more honest application. This was the foundation upon which Napoleon built his empire, and depending on how you feel about foundations, it is either inspiring or deeply alarming. His first move was not to conquer anything, it was to stabilize the money. He founded the Bank of France, introduced the Germinal franc, backed by gold and silver, centralized tax collection, and quietly demonstrated something the housing market would benefit from. Remember, you cannot run a system that operates on the assumption that chaos somehow sort itself out. Once domestic order was established, Napoleon turned to a rather elegant question: who was going to pay for the rest of the house? The answer he arrived at was not France, or at least not primarily France. After every major victory, he imposed indemnities on defeated states. Austria handed over 40 million francs after Austerlitz in 1805. Prussia was liable for sums approaching 120 million following the humiliation of Tilsit in 1807. Occupied territories fed French garrison. German states in the Confederation of the Rhine provided soldiers and funds. Italy financed its own occupation. The system was not medieval plundering in the sense of torches and axes. It was something much more sophisticated and therefore much more chilling. Structured extraction. War financed war. Conquest generated its own cash flow. The empire had built a leveraged expansion strategy, phrased in the language of a modern financial pitch deck that no one should ever have written. The parallel to the modern housing market is never accidental. In fact, it is almost embarrassingly direct. Consider what happens when you attempt to buy a $400,000 home making $80,000 a year. You scrape together a 10% down payment. Accumulating that $40,000 took you somewhere between 5 and 7 years, during which time the target price was quietly drifting away from you at 3 to 5% a year, like a bus driver who spots you running in the mirror and makes a personal decision. Your monthly mortgage payment, just principal and interest, is about $2,150. But the mortgage payment is the cost of true home ownership, what a wedding invitation is to a wedding. It is technically the beginning of the story, not the expensive part. Add property taxes.
Hey guys, if you're enjoying the video, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss.
Location, because the government enjoys a reliable revenue stream. Add homeowners insurance, which is currently 48% more expensive nationwide than it was in 2020, because climate change decided that insurance pricing is where it would introduce itself to household budget. Add private mortgage insurance, an extra $275 for the quiet crime of not being born wealthy. Add maintenance to the standard 1% of the home's value annually, assuming with touching optimism that the HVAC, roof, and water heater have agreed to fail on a polite schedule. The total monthly cost of your $400,000 home is not $2,150. It is closer to $3,500. And to do that comfortably under any financial guidelines that do not end with the phrase, and that's when we started eating the emergency rice. You need a household income of roughly $150,000. The bank will approve you at $98,000. There is a $52,000 gap between what the institution calls fine and what mathematics calls survivable. And because that institution holds the keys, it wins. In this arrangement, the bank's true job is not to ensure your quality of life, it is to ensure you keep making the minimum payments for 30 years without defaulting. This 43% debt to income threshold is not a recommendation for comfortable living. It is the maximum amount of financial pressure they believe a human being can sustain before they stop paying entirely. It is, if you stop to think about it, a deeply revealing way for a system to set its limits. Napoleon's continental system was an attempt to economically destroy Britain by blocking trade across Europe. It failed for a structurally similar reason. It looked bold on paper. It attempted to direct financial pressure outward to force Britain to bear the cost of ongoing resistance. In practice, European economies were too intertwined with British trade to survive the severance. Smuggling exploded. Black markets filled the gaps. Russia, increasingly suffocated by the regulation, began to openly flout it. And unable to tolerate the defection, Napoleon invaded in 1812 with 600,000 men into Russia in winter. The financial model that required constant expansion met the only barrier constant expansion always eventually encountered: geography, attrition, and the particular cruelty of a Russian January. The campaign brought no indemnities, no tribute, no new revenue stream. There was only cost, and when the model dependent on external extraction is deprived of its external extractions, the bill comes home. France, so disciplined and balanced domestically, suddenly had to face the cost it had carefully exported to occupied lands over the previous decade. By 1814, the coalition pushed back. In 1815, Waterloo ended the experiment permanently, and France, which for a decade had forced almost everyone to pay them indemnities, now had to pay 700 million francs in war reparations to the victors. The model completely inverted. There is a particular irony in the fact that Britain won this long financial contest not with military genius, but with institutional credibility. Backed by parliamentary continuity and consistent debt servicing, London's bond markets financed coalition forces for decades. British consuls, long-term government bonds allowed the empire to sustain prolonged warfare because investors trusted they would be repaid. By 1815, British public debt already exceeded 200% of GDP. While this looks like a catastrophe,
Hey guys, if you're enjoying the video, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss.
And confidence in financial systems is not a soft concept. It is the entire architecture. The surreal punchline of this specific chapter of history is that Napoleon, a man of extraordinary administrative discipline who stabilized the currency, modernized tax collection, and genuinely improved France's internal financial working, was ruined not by incompetence but by a model that required movement to survive. An empire that had to keep winning because the alternative was paying its own way. Like a war machine that worked perfectly until it doesn't work at all and then collapses with the integrity of something that was hollow in the middle the entire time. The average first-time homebuyer in America is now 40 years old. In 1991, that number was exactly 28. The extraordinary 12-year gap between those numbers is not a story of shifting preferences or generational lifestyle choices. It is a story of what happens when asset prices outpace wages for long enough that the entry point moves out of reach for the majority of people, who then spend their 30s watching the target retreat while everyone around them suggests they just aren't wanting it enough. 71% of first-time buyers now use gift or family money for a down payment. The white picket fence life has practically become a partially inherited product. In every single one of America's 50 largest metropolitan areas, renting is currently cheaper than buying. Every single one. The average mortgage payment exceeds the average rent nationwide by 38%. In San Francisco, the cost of buying is nearly double that of renting. This means the culturally loaded idea that renting is throwing money away, a phrase uttered at family gatherings with the confidence of someone who hasn't looked at a spreadsheet in 20 years, is not just wrong in most current market, it is exactly backward. You are not failing by rent. Depending on your situation, you're making a mathematically rational choice in a market that has decided to punish rationality with social awkwardness. The housing market is not going to crash. That is the part nobody wants to hear during a midnight Zillow session, but it is the true part. 81% of current mortgage holders have rates below 6%. 21% have rates below 3%. These people are not selling. Selling means buying again at current prices with a current mortgage, a trade they will not make voluntarily, so inventory remains low. Low inventory keeps prices high. The feedback loop has no obvious exit. What Napoleon couldn't do to Britain, what Britain could do to Napoleon's model, was outlasted by a wide margin. The slower, less flashy institutional system survived because it didn't require constant victorious movement to remain solvent. And this is the part where history crashes directly into the present, because the question facing anyone looking at a housing market where the median home costs 5 times the average income is not whether to win or lose. It is whether to wait, to move, to reframe the goal, or to build something entirely different. Buying a duplex and renting out one unit, taking a longer commute in exchange for a trick to fit a life into rather than consuming it, moving to a city where the same income buys significantly more stability. These are not romantic solutions. They are the financial equivalent of finding the back door when the front entrance decides to require credentials you don't possess. Roughly 20% of remote workers relocated in 2025, specifically due to cost of living differences. The same $100,000 that leaves you stranded in a coastal city builds something resembling real financial security in Pittsburgh, Cleveland, or St. Louis. Geographic arbitrage, not failure. It is an understanding that there are prices on the map and you are allowed to choose your course. The deeper lesson to be taken from Napoleon's empire is not about military overreach or the winter of 1812, though those are certainly instructive. It is about what happens when a system's sustainability depends entirely on expansion that cannot pause. Every decade of political and financial history is littered with these structures. Things that looked inevitable and permanent at their peak, things that seemed to solve old problems by sheer momentum, and things that were actually as fragile as anything hollow is. It is fragile at its core. They don't collapse just because of external pressure. They collapse because the internal logic required an input that eventually stopped coming. You're not actually failing at home ownership. The system is doing something much stranger than failing. It is succeeding at being a system that was not designed for you, and it keeps insisting that the correct response to being priced out is simply to want it more. Mathematics is not a personal criticism. It is an observation of where things go when you push certain numbers against other numbers for long enough. The bank will tell you that you are approved. The real estate agent will smile with the practiced warmth of someone paid by commission. Your family will ask when you are finally going to buy, because they did it in an economic universe where they were 28 years old, which has since been decommissioned. But you have access to the real figures, which is something Napoleon's enemies eventually had access to as well, and that changed everything. $80,000 a year does not buy a $400,000 home, not comfortably, not sustainably, and not in any version of mathematics that doesn't end with a car repair turning into a crisis and a broken HVAC turning into a catastrophe. Understanding this is not pessimism. It is a true beginning of making a decision based on what will actually improve your life, rather than what performs well at dinner parties. History rarely punishes ambition. It punishes financing that can never stand the moment expansion stops. The empire that endures is never the most spectacular one. It is the one with the better balance sheet, the more reliable institution, and the patience to stand when everyone else's momentum is quickly depleted. Napoleon conquered most of Europe and ultimately paid indemnities to most of the people he had previously humiliated. The lesson is not to avoid ambition. The lesson is to make sure the foundation
Hey guys,
exists.
if you're enjoying the
before you
video,
build
don't forget to
anything
hit that
on top
subscribe
of it,
button and
even
turn
if
on
that
notifications so you
foundation
never
is
miss.
just a quiet, unglamorous decision to look at the real number and refuse to pretend they are saying something they are not. Mathematics is not the enemy. It is the only honest thing in the room.